Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are joining in from. I'm very happy to host the next Tech Recruiting Academy, sponsored by WeAreDevelopers. The topic today is diversity, but we will speak differently about this topic today. We are not going to consider it as a number. It's not going to be a box. It's not going to be a problem for the tech recruiting environment. We will change a little bit the way we speak about diversity. We will speak about solutions, and that's why I have two amazing ladies with me, Morena and Marine. They will tell us about themselves in a while, but I just want to quickly share with you. They have been there, they have done that, they know what they do, and they will help us. They're here to help us to walk away with some practical tips. And let's not kid ourselves, folks. It's not a smooth sailing. We've got cultural gaps to discuss, logistical headaches, and then the whole remote work dynamics to navigate. I would like to hear from our panelists, of course, but I also want to hear from you. Just don't shy away. Ask your questions, engage, and also share your experience. Engage with our panelists and with each other. You can use the question section is it right or left? Okay, you'll figure it out. I think it's on the right. And before we start, I would like to remind you again, be nice to each other and use inclusive language so that everyone can feel comfortable during this session. Good morning, ladies. I know that it's good morning for you.
Good morning, Anna.
Hello, Anna.
I'll kick it out directly. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your goal and what are you fighting for?
Thank you, Anna. I'm going to start. My name is Marina Linda Richter. My name is a bit funny since I live in Spain. My name are two adjectives that actually state being dark beauty, which is inappropriate to call my name in the street, so everyone calls me Mo in the end. I'm here because well, we're talking about culture, and as you can see, I am already diverse since I'm German. I was born in Kiel. It's in the northern part of Germany. I'm half Caribbean. And on the other hand, I'm a single mom. I'm an entrepreneur. I am a business owner. I'm working in this environment for a long time, sales expert and marketing expert as well. So what shall I say? Diversity starts everywhere. And this is why I would like to give some insights today for Get Initized and also for hiring, because I think we have a lot of information that might help people to overcome thresholds.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you, Marina. Hi, Anna. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you today for this hour of insightful conversations, I hope. My name is Marine Umo. I am part of the Get Initized team, and I think I to a certain extent, also represent a beacon of diversity and inclusion. My specialty is on adult education and employability for African youth. And I am the country director for Kenya in our organization. So my goal is to help African tech talent to get into jobs, dignified work, remote opportunities that can help them secure a better future, and super passionate about bringing light to this very important topic and focusing on diversity and inclusion. So yeah, very excited about having this conversation with you, Anna and Morena, and everyone in the chat as well.
I'm also very happy to have you, ladies, and you bring amazing experience, both personal and professional. And I'll start directly with my first question. Why is having different types of people important for an organization?
Thanks, Anna. I'll kick us off and take that one. I will say that actually we say in an organization, but I think organizations in this space are just like societies, just like communities, and having different types of people in societies, in communities, and in organization, corporate organization, and startups, and any part of the ecosystem is super important. I feel like it's something that we say all the time, that we repeat, that is held as a North Star, but it is always important to repeat it and to understand why it's not just about saying, diversity inclusion is important, having more people is important, but actually seeing the reasons behind it and the numbers behind it and so on. So I will say that having different types of people, like you said, in an organization, but also in society, is for me something that first and foremost helps foster innovation and creativity and resilience. We can see in all, and I like to bring number and data into those type of conversation because again, it's easy to say, hey, it's important to have more women, to have more ethnicity represented. But what does that actually mean for an organization? And so I will encourage everyone to have a look at a study that was conducted on diversity in the workplace by the consulting firm McKinsey, which has some really interesting data. So they've been conducting that study for the past couple of years. And they pull data from different organizations that show that companies that have more than 30% women in at every level of the organization is actually going to outperform financially most of their peers. And that average is also the same for ethnic diversity. So with an average of 27% of outperformance for organizations that have a fair share of ethnic diversity into their organization up until the top quartile. So I think it's very important to say, hey, when we talk about having different people, it's not just having different people in one given sphere. It's actually having different people, having women, having people from different ethnicities, having persons with disabilities at all level of an organization is something that fosters better results through innovation, through creative mindset, through different perspectives as well, because everyone brings in their own perspective and resilience. So definitely extremely important.
I'm happy that we move away from the normal definition and the normal conversation when it comes to diversity, and we kick it off with the business results, because this is what matters actually in the tech industry. This is the industry of innovators, and you really need different profiles in order to drive this innovation. And I'm happy that you have a different definition actually of diversity. Would you like to share more, Morena, when it comes to your definition
Sure.
about diversity?
Well, for me, diversity is the only opportunity for workplaces to thrive, honestly, because the embracing of unique perspectives and experiences helps us to develop. And having a new perspective from a different angle can help to explore new fields you haven't thought about. So it's just like drawing a horse from two different positions. You look at the front, I look at the back. We still draw the same picture, but in the end, yes, we should put it together, and then we have maybe the opportunity, using diversity, to see the whole picture from all angles and become 3D. So in my thinking, it is that diversity increases all spectrums of a company, not only later in the amount of money that you can make, but also the happiness in a company, because you just develop yourself. You learn new things. If it is culture-wise, for example, asking for what are you having for dinner, yeah, and you can share ideas. This also helps to have a better understanding in a community, which a company is. If you want to be fair, the world becomes smaller, and diversity hiring in the way we do it right now means opportunities creating to have a better understanding and, well, see everyone on eye level, which currently, unfortunately, isn't happening everywhere.
Yeah, interesting how happiness and self-growth kind of come together into the picture. And you ladies both mentioned Africa and African tech talent in the beginning of our conversation. So I would like to ask you, what qualities do African tech experts have that could help with Europe's tech shortage? I mean, you know that we lack a lot of tech talent in Europe, not only in Europe, but how can this be handled via experts from Africa?
Thank you, Anna. I will take it. So I think I'll circle back to what you said earlier. Like, this conversation needs to be, I think when we have the DEI conversation, it always needs to be in the context of business, just because we know that it's also what is being heard by companies, by organization, and so on. So I like the idea of saying, hey, DEI, diversity, inclusion, is super important for lots of reasons, but it's also something that will bring something to the organization. It will drive financial performance. It will drive having better results, and so on. So in that space, in that direction, we have a big focus on driving African tech talent into European organizations, specifically to bridge that gap, the business gap, which is that we have a skills shortage at the moment. We don't have enough talent in Europe, and Africa is obviously the youngest and one of the biggest, or the biggest continent at the moment in terms of workforce. And therefore, it only makes a ton of sense to bring the two worlds together and make sure that we leverage that African tech talent pool into organizations based in Europe. So a few of the reasons. So the first reason for me would be, first of all, the quantity of talent. I think in 2023 we had more than 750,000 software developers in Africa only. So huge talent pool that is clearly still being very much untapped. It is also a very young population and a very connected population that has learned to grow with new tech, and therefore makes it super valuable when they get into a remote job, into a tech company. And then there are some very specific advantages, like most African countries, especially the tech hubs like Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya, are native English-speaking populations, so super helpful for businesses. Same time zone, data privacy laws. So we see it both and I emphasize on, it's not just a good thing to do. It's not just about skills, but it's also about infrastructure and policy that can be leveraged to support the need for tech talent within European organizations. So I think we're seeing more and more that a lot of the outsourcing business is moving away from India, or at least is decreasing a little bit from India, and going a little bit more into countries like Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya. And those would be for all the reasons that I've just highlighted.
You already answered maybe partially my next question, but I wanted to see if you have brought us some interesting facts about the people working in tech in Africa.
Sure. I could give you some numbers maybe that might be interesting, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship in Africa. During the last 5 years, Kenya, for example, has doubled the tech startups. So it means there is a huge growth already. And when you look at Ghana, it's 75% during the last 5 years over the same period. So, in South Africa, even 120%. That means there are a lot of people who dive deep into tech, have a good understanding, and they create their own environment where they can thrive and increase and have businesses which are serious. So we are not talking about small businesses just doing small stuff. We are talking about real companies growing there, and not to forget that Kenya is considered, or Nairobi to be precise, considered to become the new Silicon Valley. Europe invests a lot of money right now also into tech in Nairobi, for example. So it's not, or it's more likely that we should consider this continent as a huge source. And we at Get Initized do this for already 8 years almost. No, it's 8, right? Almost 9 years, 2015, that we decided, okay, there is this huge gap existing of people working in tech in Europe. And there are 60% in population in Ghana, for example, that is younger than 30 years. So what can we do? It is easy to bring knowledge and value to this company because they only need to have a computer and internet and electricity. So it's the first generation that has the opportunity to upskill themselves, to learn and do something with this knowledge and become a global player somehow. And in this way they do. And the only thing that is holding them back currently is, well, a culture, maybe not knowing about people, not having a deeper understanding. And this is, for example, what I do for Get Initized. I bridge between European companies and African talents, so there is a better understanding of cultural problems that might come up because of differences. So it isn't a real problem, it's just a not knowing, and I help to understand better. And I think those numbers speak for themselves when you see the talents.
Yeah, absolutely. And culture is a big piece. I mean, Europe, Africa, those are two different continents. But how can European businesses find talent while also making sure everyone feels included and respected? I mean, are those cultures so different? And what is your experience with this?
When you just take the talent itself, means blind recruiting, for example, yeah. So you have not the typical bias behind it. That means you do not see skin color, gender, where the person comes from. That might be already a solution. And also diverse interview panels could be helping, means you have more people from different perspectives looking at it. So interviewing always is also a process of personal likes or dislikes. You have to work in the end with a person. But when you have a better understanding for cultural differences, it's less only by bias, but more by maybe really not fitting as a person, not by culture. You know, I do not have to like everyone, but if someone can do the job and is perfect, I shouldn't choose just because the person is from Ghana that it is not a fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just thinking about the opportunities that you mentioned in your previous comment, that this generation for the first time, they have the opportunity to do something differently than the previous generations. And what can be done basically to make sure that hiring remote talent in Africa is fair and open to everyone?
So I would say, building on what has been just said, so it's got to be from end-to-end process. It's got to be from the beginning. You're hiring someone, you need to be super mindful. You need to be very proactive when you talk about diversity in the hiring process, in the onboarding process, and in the management process. I think saying that equal opportunities means opening a role remotely and making it available to all is actually not the most inclusive. It's not the most equity way of driving your recruitment process and your hiring process, and then your onboarding and management process, just because it is assuming that everyone comes to the interview with the same level of opportunity, with the same infrastructure, with the same background, and therefore it is already messing with the playground. So I would say, for me, something that is super important, obviously, through the hiring process, is making sure that when you post a job opening and it's actually going to be remote, that's kind of the first thing that we see a lot. So we see a lot of opportunities that say, yes, this is a remote opportunity, but then you dig into it, you speak to the hiring manager, and it's actually, oh yes, it's a remote opportunity in Europe. because that's where legislation is similar to our own country, or that's where it makes more sense in terms of traveling and so on. And so talking specifically of Africa, because we're advocate for African talent, our dire reality is that most of the openings, most of the jobs that are being sold as remote jobs are actually European jobs for European citizens. And it's pretty much the same thing in the US because of US legislation and so on. So remote, I think, again, you have to be super proactive and mindful when you.
I lost her for a
You,
moment.
yes, I'm losing Marine right now as well. Well,
She'll
but
come back, but maybe Morena, in the meantime, you would like to kind of add something, or I mean, you mentioned
well,
something very interesting when we were in our preliminary discussion. You said, I'm sitting into interviews with German companies, I think you mentioned, to make sure that
yes.
we overcome the bias. I think it's something very interesting for our audience.
Yeah, to overcome bias is, well, you only can state something that you understand or that you are aware of. And I guess I gave you the example with the laundry machine, right? And washing laundry.
Yeah,
I
you
would like
asked me.
to,
You asked me about this.
yes,
I don't
exactly.
remember it.
Yes, exactly. So let's see. If you speak about doing your laundry in Europe, it means mostly that you push a button. And this is what you say, I do the laundry is a 5 minutes job, and then you take it out, maybe takes a few minutes longer again, and then it's done. Yeah. When you say in Ghana, I do the laundry, it's a day job. So because you have to collect it and you wash by hand. So we start with small things. Or when you say it's a birthday party, it's not that you give gifts, but it's you have to house everyone. So the house is full of people and you are celebrating for a long time. And having those diverse differences in culture can lead to misunderstanding when you do not know about them. So if one of my team members says, I have to do the laundry, and it's Wednesday, I say, no, you don't, because I know exactly this person won't be available for the next 4 hours. So it's considered to be done during the weekend. And there are more things, of course, you have to understand. If there is a birthday and the person celebrating during the week, well, you should talk about it before. So make sure that you know about differences like public holidays in Ghana, even though you are a German company. Yeah. Usually our team members follow the German calendar, but there are some public holidays that are very important to them. It might be by religion or because it is something else, but it is important. So talking about this and including this into the work should be something that should be considered, in my opinion, to make it easy for both sides.
Yeah, to make sure that the culture is inclusive, actually. Because
Exactly.
cultural differences, they bring positives with them, but they might bring some misunderstandings within the team. And knowing them,
Certainly.
being aware about it is something that actually can help a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not in Ghana, the people aren't that outgoing, for example. So you might have a seasoned developer, a senior level, who can lead his team perfectly, but when he comes to the new company, he doesn't speak up. So people consider him being inactive. But it's not true. The person just respects that the others are there in the company too, and he considers them telling him first in the beginning what to do. Not because he doesn't know better, but he doesn't want to be rude and cross people in the same time, and wants to understand first how the company runs. So it comes often that people say to me, well, but he or she is so quiet. We expect more outgoing. And then I say, okay, I understand this. I can talk about it, but please, the person has their own thoughts, but maybe doesn't share it because it's in the culture not included to share all your thoughts. So yes, we have to train on both sides. It's not only the German company that needs to understand, it's also the candidate that needs to learn the culture of speaking up and having ideas and telling them.
Yeah, it feels like a process, actually. It feels like a real process. And if there is a will, there is a way, apparently, on how to overcome it. Well, I really hope that we didn't lose Marine forever.
I am not certain. I received a message, so let me just check on it.
Okay.
Laptop froze, joining in a minute. I think this is quite precise. So let's give her some more time, but maybe you and I can chat on a little. So
yeah, let's go. Let's continue with the next question. And I don't know whether you are prepared to answer it or Marine, but I'll just shut it out and see where it goes and how it lands with you. What challenges do you think we'll see in how European companies hire African talent and how they can get ready for them, actually?
Well, it is a bit of the part I already said. So it is a cross-cultural training, I guess, that is requested. I can give you another example. I built a team in South Africa. That is a few years ago. And one of my bestseller with an extremely British accent, he wasn't to be detected as not British at all. Well, we once shared, what are you doing over the weekend? Because remote work and inclusivity, is it a word?
Yeah.
See? Yeah, it is.
We are
Let's use
international
it.
community. We speak English as we can, you know.
Exactly. So he shared his weekend, and I was a bit stunned because he is the eldest son of an official crowd. And he shared a picture where he is the only guy of the whole crowd that studied abroad, and everyone else is sitting there in an extremely tiny covering. So it's built out of leaves, actually, and some fabric, and they are most of the time naked, and they have just some painting in the face. So what I want to state here is I didn't expect this. He is always wearing a tailored suit, and he was very accurate speaking British English, as I said. And then I saw a picture of him sitting on the ground with his family and eating out of a bowl with his hands. And that was a picture that reminded me of, hey, this guy is working in an IT remote job, but his cultural background is totally different. And it was delightful to see that these differences in the work world aren't existing, actually. So it doesn't mean just because someone lives with his native folk that they can't do the job. And that was a very important information for myself to understand, that wherever a person comes from and whatever a person does in their non-professional life has nothing to do with their real profession. So cross-cultural training is something that is very important in my opinion, and effective communication channels like what we do here right now, also in writing, that we include everyone no matter where they are, is very important as well. So educational institutions could be supported by European countries to get more people into jobs later. They could even support the future talents in Africa, for example. I'm not sure if Marine is coming back. So partnership.
We just go ahead and she will join us. I mean, this happens when it comes to online editions, so no worries about it. If she can, she joins. If not, we just go ahead and you take the burden of informing our audience about everything, you know. Okay.
Okay, Marine is on the phone. Okay, yeah. Well, then we move on. Here, partnerships with African tech hubs. You were asking where European companies could change to hire from Africa, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how to get ready. Yeah, partnerships with African tech hubs, for example, could be an opportunity as well. So the tech hubs are existing everywhere and in Africa as well. Going to co-working spaces is very common because they provide internet stable connections and stable electricity. And yes, it is true that a lot of African countries still face power outs, but there are solutions that can overcome this problem easily. So those tech hubs are existing, or companies like at Initized are existing, providing offices and help to make sure that everyone can work stable as if they were located in Europe.
We work with a lot of assumptions when it comes to, I mean, maybe not only in Europe, maybe also in Africa. And you brought some real examples, and I really like them. Is there anything else that you would like to add when it comes to what should European companies, for example, think about when hiring people from different cultures and with different skills? I mean, you already mentioned the electricity as an issue. You mentioned the fact that someone can be a professional and adopt the culture of the company, even if he lives with his own family and he lives his own culture, let's call it like this. Can you give us more examples into it, or any other ideas when it comes to like Europe, Africa, skills, culture?
Well,
And I see also that Marine has joined
yes,
us
I
via
wanted to
phone.
say,
I mean, I don't know
Yes.
which of you would like to pick up this one, but
I will take it. It's fine. It's
okay.
fine. Well, the cultural sensitivity should be considered, and this is for both sides. So, when you hire in Africa, they don't use public transportation, for example, very often because it's very complicated and takes hours. The streets aren't very safe. Even if you're in a capital, it can mean when it starts raining that it takes you 3-4 hours to get to the office. So Uber, for example, is well known. People take cars to get to work. So it is just as you get to know other people, Anna. Usually, well, I work a lot in co-working spaces, and people from all over the world are there. And we have bias situations where people have their own thoughts, and the only way how to overcome it is by asking. We have a German TV show that is called Sesame Street. Or it's not German, but we have Sesame Street, and the song in German says that you have to ask. If you do not ask, you will not get more intelligent. So whenever you do not understand something, you should ask. And you shouldn't be afraid of asking, because assuming doesn't lead to what you really need to understand. My assumption can lead to total wrong situations. Like once a guy showed up to an interview. Yeah, he was on his phone in a car. In my opinion, very inappropriate. You would, I think, assume the same if it is a tech interview for a senior role. So he was late, he was on the phone, he was sitting in the car. I thought, oh no. The other side thought, oh no, as well. But I asked him during the interview, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you at the computer? And then he said, yeah, I have to bring my wife to hospital. And I have my day off, I planned it, and now the interview came in and I didn't want to cancel and let you down. So, but instead of stating this up front, he tried to maintain everything on his phone and it didn't work. So, but opening the door was just asking what's going on. And then I could state it and say, hello, everyone, please, let's reschedule. I just learned that our interview partner, unfortunately, has to go to hospital with his wife, and everyone understood. So if you do not ask, and if you're not open to understand that there are people who try to make everything happen, on the other hand, then you will consider this person being unprofessional without knowing the person was quite very professional and tried to solve the problem, but the solving didn't suit the situation.
Yeah, but lovely that you bring this as an example because I don't even think that it's a cultural difference. It's a matter of personality. I mean, we
Also,
in Europe we try to be professionals most of the time without, and we forget to be humans. Actually, it might happen to
true.
someone who is from Europe, who is attending an interview in Europe. It's even not cultural. It's like but being aware about cultural differences probably make us be more open when it comes to like people in general.
Yeah, people is exactly the reason why I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm
wow.
always interested in people behind the title. I'm always interested in what really drives the person to do what the person is doing, because this is well, it's well, people cut themselves off, and then we are speaking about social and work-life balance and so on, but we do not have two different lives. It is all our life. So, inclusivity. I really don't like this word.
It is an
Um,
introvert. You can go ahead
yes.
with that one.
um, it's also the same with parents. Yeah, being a parent is also currently, and when you're working, it's diverse. When you have a child, when you're a single mother, we can also go deep down into this one. So one of my best colleagues I hired is a young mother of two children, and when I hired her for Get Initized, she was still breastfeeding. The child was 3 months old, and she wondered why I hired her. And trust me, she is the one with the most talent, and she is the one that understands that her role is crucial and that she brings a lot of value to the company. So diversity is a lot. But Marine, I guess now you can listen and you can speak again, right?
Yes, absolutely. I apologize for this. The joys of tech and remote working. I think it's a very good example of all the things that can go wrong when you work with a very diverse team and diverse location. So sorry about that, Anna and Morena.
You're more than welcome to rejoin the discussion, Marina, if you have anything to add. I also want to encourage our audience to make sure that you post your questions. I'll make sure that we have at least 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the session to answer to those. Um, to those questions. And I don't know, Marina, do you also want to add anything to what Morena said?
I think Morena said it very well, and it's part of our everyday life and challenges that we try to overcome. But I would re-emphasize on, again, when we talk about, what may be some of those challenges, and when we talk about diversity and inclusion in the workplace and in hiring, especially again, I think we were very specific in the scope that we looked at, which is specifically Africa, which is one narrow avenue into the whole space around diversity and inclusion. But I think the question of culture fit, which I joined back in the conversation when Morena was touching about it, and I think is a very, very important one, because we may think that hiring people from multiple countries, from multiple horizons is enough. It rarely is. And actually, if you're not proactive, if you're not mindful about the way that you bring up your team, the way that the team is trained, the way that the managers are trained, and so on, you will necessarily encounter cultural differences that are absolutely okay, but will also hinder the working relationship if you don't take care of it. So Morena shared a very good example that was about hiring, a hiring situation we encountered, but we also had other situations where the hiring was actually made. So we had European companies and European managers hiring an African software developer, if I'm correct. And actually, you would think that the hard part is over, but actually it's not. And not because the person wasn't up for the job, the technical job, or not because the manager was not inclusive and didn't want to work with this new staff member, but rather because they didn't have a common understanding of what was important in the workplace. And so, for example, the software developer, our software developer, was a really good tech person, excellent in programming and excellent in all technical fields, but was from a culture where humility and lack of rather fixing the problem rather than talking about the problem was the way to go about it. But for the manager, it was really a problem because what they wanted was to understand where this person was going, what were they fixing, and so on. And that lack of communication was actually called out to us quite a couple of times and hindered the relationship between the manager and the software developer. And it was a really good learning point for us to think that just because the person got hired doesn't mean that the work stops there. And so I would say it was obviously on the software developer, on the tech talent, to learn how to cope with a different environment, but it was also the manager's role, and to relate to what Morena said, to probably ask more questions and to ask themselves more questions about why is this person behaving this way, rather than assuming, oh, he just doesn't like to talk, for instance. So yeah, I would say that wanting to hire diversity and wanting to be an equal company doesn't just mean going into quotas and having job posts that say that they are remote and so on. It's like actually something that requires quite a lot of work internally in order to achieve positive diversity, I would say.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Marie.
I was about to say the same. Yeah, I mean, it really takes time and for the results to be there, to be in place. But it's worth it. It's worth it, especially with the talent shortage that we are having in Europe. And maybe you also have some successful hires, some stories. You can tell us some successful stories about hires in Africa,
Absolutely.
how it helped European companies. How do these success stories show that having a mix of people helps the companies to do better in terms of financial results or innovation or whatsoever?
Well, it is. Oh, Marine, would you like?
No, absolutely, go for it.
Yeah, no, we can do it together if you want to. I just wanted
One
to
after
say,
another.
yeah, exactly. So, for example, companies who are financially maybe not as stable as they would like to be, or they are finance sensitive, let's call it like this, have the opportunity to hire, of course, by near sourcing. So what we do, what we provide is having the opportunity to have a great talent to a reasonable price for both sides. How is this happening? Well, the life costs in Ghana are much lower than in Germany, for example. So to make sure when you hire from Ghana, that you pay a great income for this developer is easier than having the same level hired in Germany. So to be precise, a normal Ghanaian income currently hovers around 400 euros, and then they are already on the well-paid side. So if you come with 400 euros to Germany, you know that you can not even afford an apartment. So it means if you have a good hire, and I do not encourage people not to pay well. What I say is life costs are different. And of course, that means you can reduce your costs by hiring from abroad remotely for your company. And the other side still earns a huge amount of money more than they would earn maybe if they get hired in their own country. So it's a win-win situation that is created here, and also encourage people maybe to be open for diversity hiring. Not only because they want to achieve cultural,
To bring to the topic that oftentimes companies are having issues with, like they pay at the market level. But when it comes to tech talent, you do not compete with the other companies who have open positions. You compete with the actual employer of the person. And this combined with the fact, let's say that in Europe we speak different languages, so you are stuck to a language in many cases. If you are not visible as a brand, not a famous brand, if you are in a small location and you want the person to come on site, this limits enormously the talent pool. And you can actually handle very well your internal budgets and still have bring some great talent to your team by hiring in countries where the talent is less expensive, let's put it like this, but the quality is still there. And Marine, I know that you also wanted to contribute to this question in the beginning.
Yeah, so I think, again, Marina said it very well. What I would emphasize, because we talked a lot about the challenges, but it's very important to also talk about the successes. And we wouldn't be here if the business case was not also a success for every developer that we struggle, and I say developer, but it can be software engineer, it can be any sort of tech talent, any talent that we struggle to place and keep in a position. We have dozens that are actually happily placed and very successful within their organizations. And we get super positive feedback. And I think for us, a good KPI when it comes to success is the fact that companies come back to us to hire more talent. And that is the true token of, this is working and the person is being embedded into the team and into the organization and is actually a good fit. So we're seeing more and more of those cases as we learn. And it's very interesting to see. So we have a special appetite given our history with German companies and German organizations and Europe as well, but with a special focus on Germany. And one would think that, for example, the language barrier, if you're looking outside of tech startups that usually have a very English speaking ecosystem, you could assume that, it was a bit more of a difficult market to penetrate for us. And we're actually, it's quite the opposite. We're seeing so many great results with the individuals that we place in German SMEs. And I think that is really interesting to see, given the frame and given the frame that might be different from, again, tech startups, where you're used to having very international staff and very different locations. So yes, definitely lots of great success stories in that field, which make up for all the difficulties, I would say.
And let's hope to even more. To sum it up, what's the role of partnerships like with your organization in helping European companies hire remotely in Africa?
Well, the role is not only to help European companies to get into the untapped pool of talents, but also to have a safe hire. So Get Initialized, for example, is a German African company. So we brought as well, that sounds very biased now, but the German work ethics into this, which is considered to be constantly working, being always forward-driven. So yeah, everyone knows about the German work ethic bias, but we really use this because it's important for companies to understand, to overcome another bias that is existing, unfortunately, that African people do not want to work. So so we have a lot of biases to overcome here. But what we do is we ensure that people who want to hire from Africa have the opportunity to do this with compliance. What is the right term for this? Local regulations, I guess, and cultural nuances are absolutely softened, and the contracts we provide are German service contracts. So the legal side is very important for European companies, that they do not go out hiring someone, and it is after this false self-employment situation that a lot of companies faces when they hire a single person for long term. So we handle this as an employer of record situation. That means we can even dive deep into the whole ecosystem and source for the right person if necessary in sub-Saharan area, and provide after this talent to companies when requested. What us differs from others is that tech speaks with tech. That is one of the problems, in my opinion. I know I open another topic right now. I do not dive deep since I'm time sensitive as well. But tech hiring also has a problem currently in Europe. So when you speak to HR and you are not a tech company, means your HR team isn't tech sensitive. They have no clue about tech at all, maybe. They know there are some developers, they can't tell the differences. So what we do is we hear the company out first, and then our tech team speaks with their tech team to detect what is really mandatory for you, so that everyone is on the same page, and then we provide them the right talents after this. So it's extremely time saving for the companies as well. Not only that they only speak to people who are a fit later for the role, so they can choose from, well, they do not have to do the whole cycle of recruitment, let's say it like this. So we cut it short for companies, providing them the real tech stack that is mandatory, and make sure that when they move on with us, that they have the right partner on site as well. So we tackle everything that comes with hiring on our side, and they get the service that they need to fulfill the task. But the person is onboarded as their personal, as if you hire yourself. So we just take care of everything that is mandatory.
Yeah, it's full support and real partner from what I'm hearing. You mentioned the time. I'm also cautioned about the time. I just checked and
Yes.
I don't see any questions from the audience. I'll give them a couple of minutes, but if something pops up, I'll ask you. But in the meantime, just one last question from me, and it's more like, I don't know how to ask it, but okay. Is there anything I didn't ask you, but I want to talk about? Would be my question. You think it's important to share with the audience?
Thank you, Anna, and it was really super nice. And again, sincere apologies for the little tech mishap. I still have not managed to get my laptop back up and running, and I'm working for a tech company, so it's really ridiculous. But no, I think we had a very insightful conversation. Again, as a strong advocate, I want to reemphasize on the notion that, yes, we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion. Those are flagship words in 2024, I would say. But actually, it has to be a mindful decision of an organization to look into what it means for you as a company to hire diversely and to drive equity and inclusivity in your organization. All things, all benchmark, all decisions do not apply to all companies the same way. And so you need to have a tailored approach, and you need to be, again, I love the word mindfulness, but you need to be very mindful about what that means for your organization, because otherwise it's like everything, it's never going to work, and it will just be what it is, which is flagship words and empty promises. So diversity and inclusion, especially when looking in the remote tech industry, needs to be something that is driven by the company and for the company and for the right reasons, in order to be successful. So yeah, I think those would be my closing remarks. Morena, do you have anything that you want to add?
Only one thing. Of course, we're focused now on Africa because this is our home turf. Diversity is so much more. So it's just before someone feels offended that we didn't tap into this field. Of course, diversity means more, but for us, it was now the remote hiring process, especially when you hire from and source in Africa. So whenever you feel like you need to talk about more, reach out. And Marine, I'm so sorry that you have to handle this technical issue right now, but you were very well audible in the end. So hopefully you are not too stressed.
Thank you so much, Marina, Anna, and everyone who joined in for the conversation.
And I would like to encourage actually everyone to get in touch with Morena and Marine. Connect via LinkedIn, connect via other social media. There is a lot to learn. There is a lot to be discussed. If you want to continue the discussion, just feel free. Thank you, ladies, very much for the conversation. And with this being said, I'll close this edition of our Tech Recruiting Academy. It was amazing to have you on stage, and I hope that you will join us another time as well.
Thank you, Anna. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you both. Thank you, everyone.